You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. It's a late night on a Wednesday, and the Bulls lose 127 to 121. Don't let the final score fool you, though. The Bulls were not competitive for 95% of this basketball game against the Phoenix Suns. Today's episode is brought to you by Prizepicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. So this game, the theme of it, sloppy basketball from start to finish. The Bulls didn't play good. They played bad basketball pretty much the entire game. We're talking about that. We're talking about Josh Giddey's return, and then some of the struggles we saw from modest Buzelis, and that are going to be things to work on in the offseason for him that he can fix, that are not broken things in his game that are going to be a problem for him long-term, or shouldn't be a problem for him long-term. But look, this Bulls game really comes down to a couple really simple things that have been a problem for the Chicago Bulls throughout the entire season. We'll start with the turnover margin. The Bulls had only 13 turnovers in the game. The problem is they all came in the first half, basically. The Bulls got down really quick in this game. They were down at the end of the first quarter. Well, they were down 16-8 with 6:56 left to go in the first quarter, just playing absolutely out of control. And they were down 31-22 after the first, down 63-51 at the half. So yeah, they're only down 8 points at halftime. My next note here of while I'm taking notes during the game is, the Bulls are down by 21. So they had it within range after playing terribly in the first half, but then the third quarter started and it just absolutely got out of control very quickly, and the Bulls got down by 21 points. They just played out of control in the first half and the start of the second half, and it really is the reason why they lost this game. The big other part of the reason why they lost this game, not just the fact that they played sloppy and had bad plays. When they had good plays, there's two other reasons. When they had good plays, they would make huge mistakes. 2 times in this game. One by Zach Collins, one by, I believe it was Kobe White, or might have been Trey Jones. But both times, the Bulls get a turnover or offensive rebound, and then they immediately throw it right to the Phoenix Suns. That's a huge problem. To come down with a turnover, Zach Collins was a block. So he gets the block, great play, gets the ball back in his hands, throws the outlet pass, and a Phoenix Suns defender is right there, and they get the ball back. Now, in that possession, the Suns didn't score, but it's telling of what was just happening in this game for the Bulls. They just could not get a grasp of the basketball, basically, and were just playing sloppy. Because even when they weren't getting turnovers in the first half, they just felt like they were so out of control that they couldn't get good shots. The other one, the Phoenix Suns are not a large basketball team. Like, they're not what we saw versus the Houston Rockets or what we've seen versus the Orlando Magic this year. The problem with the Bulls in this game, really, that what it really comes down to is going to be second chance points. 26 second chance points for the Phoenix Suns tonight to 9 for the Chicago Bulls. They just got smoked on the glass to a team that you really shouldn't. And the other part of why they lost, well, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker were Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. They were awesome in this game. That shot in there in the fourth quarter, when the shot clock is expiring and Devin Booker does a step-back 3 as the clock is expiring and banks it in, it's just ball game at that point. Like, it already was, but they were just so effective tonight, and the Bulls really had no shot against it. We saw, modest Buzelis, I think, put up a decent effort defensively. I mean, left a lot to be desired still, but it could have been a lot worse versus KD when he was matched up with him. But those are the main things: the sloppy play, the offensive rebounds. That's really what was the reason why the Bulls couldn't win this basketball game. And look, this is a team that I said this on the last one, and it's frustrating a lot of people, and I get it with where the Bulls sit in the standings right now. But they're definitely a play-in team. And now it's about rising the standings for me. I'm changing my perspective on the Bulls. I have to, because that's what they are doing. They are trying to chase down the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. And after this loss and moving to 29-40, they still sit tied with the Miami Heat. They are still 2.5 games back, or the Orlando Magic. Gaps they could have either increased or closed in on after this game if they would have won against a team in Phoenix that hasn't been good all year. They're downright terrible on defense. And they looked pretty competent against the Chicago Bulls today, mostly to the Bulls' own fault throughout this entire game. Let's highlight some of the individual performances in this game before we get to our turning point and player of the game. So Nikola Vucevic, 10 for 17 from the field, 24 points, 4 for 8 from the three-point line. Obviously, one of the worst moments of the game. 2 missed free throws, and then he airballed a three-pointer. That's not great. But he ends up having a better night in the end for him. Kind of why the Bulls were able to make a little bit of a late surge was he finally got it going offensively. Kobe White, his 10th straight game now with 20 points. 24 points on the night, 9 of 18 from the field, 3 of 9 from the three-point line. Hit his first one. Him and Kevin Durant both hit their first threes of the night, and that actually felt like a very positive thing at the time as we saw them going in when the Bulls had, those were 6 of the first 8 points of the game. Felt like maybe those guys who've been slumping a little bit would figure it out, and they were fine in this game. Nothing to write home about, but nothing terrible either. But 24 points for Kobe White, obviously hits that deep three at the very end there to make it a 4-point game. And look, at the end of the game, to talk about that here first before we move on to the other players, because I skipped over that for a second, thinking about the sloppiness of the game. They get it down to 4 points. What led to it and what led after it are both frustrating things for me. What led to it was they finally started, trapping. They started trapping the Phoenix Suns. They started playing more aggressively, defensively. They forced a bad shot. They get the ball. Kobe White hits the 3. You're down by 4. And Adam Amin and Stacey King are talking about this on the broadcast on CHSN, that why aren't they doing this sooner? Why is this not something the Bulls went to earlier, trying to close this gap at the end of the game? Why did they wait so long? It almost feels like, in a way, can't prove this, Billy Donovan didn't think they were going to win, so there was no need. But then when they got it close enough, he was like, maybe we should tell these guys to tune it up a little bit defensively. So that frustrates me, just waiting on it. And then the next play after you hit the 3, Devin Booker gets the backdoor cut for an easy layup, puts it back up 6. And that was officially the ball game in that moment. But you had a chance, but you just let Booker get right behind you and get an easy layup right underneath the hoop. And that was ball game for the Bulls in this one. All right, let's get to our turning point of tonight's game.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Where was this game lost? Let's do this. Let's go here. Start of the second quarter. I'm going to just pinpoint this play here as the reason why the Bulls lost this game, because it goes back to what I was saying in the last segment. Bulls are in a 2-3 zone to start the second quarter. Dalen Terry gets a steal. He was the one, sorry to the other 2 guys I mentioned, that throws a terrible pass to Tyus Jones immediately. Doesn't even take a step, just throws it up right to Tyus Jones. The Phoenix Suns get a layup, and then Billy Donovan has to call a timeout in the first 30 seconds of the second quarter. I'm going to say that's the turning point of the game, because as the second quarter starts, you're down by 9. You feel like that play, as they're in the zone and as they get a turnover, maybe that can be a momentum builder for the Bulls in the second quarter. Instead, they get the ball right back to Phoenix. Phoenix scores, and then right there, you have to call timeout because, well, that's what Billy Donovan has to do a million times this season. All right, our player of the game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
I don't know the rules for the Locked On Player of the Game, so we're going to go Locked On Player of the Game tonight, Kevin Durant for the Phoenix Suns. You know what? No, I can't do that. It's Devin Booker. Devin Booker, 41 points in this game, 14 of 26 from the field, 6 of 12 from the three-point line. I guess I technically could give it to Kobe White, but I did that the last time they lost, so I'm not giving it to him again. They should have won this game. They should have beat the Phoenix Suns, so I'm giving the Locked On Player of the Game to Devin Booker. All right, when we get back, let's talk about Josh Giddey's return, because he did make an immediate impact to this game when he checked in for the first time with about 7 minutes left to go in the first quarter. So saw Josh Giddey's return. Surprise, he might even play in the back-to-back here tonight and tomorrow night, which is a bit of a surprise coming off of this injury. So we'll talk about that all and Modest Buzelis when we get back here on the Locked On Bulls postcast and the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prizepicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prizepicks, you can just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's easy to use, available in over 30 states, and lets you mix and match projections across different sports. Best building a lineup, you're talking about what the Bulls got coming up. You got guys like Luka Doncic, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, guys that are going to be looking for points against the Chicago Bulls are guys that I will definitely be keeping an eye on when I set my Prizepicks lineup, especially tomorrow night if Zach LaVine plays against him, to see what he can do against his former team. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. When it comes time to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had this ongoing problem. We all have a grocery problem. Grocery shopping is not fun sometimes. I just don't have the time between work, life, and trying to eat healthier. I was constantly feeling stressed out. I go to the grocery store, buy the things I need, and end up with no time to actually cook and sticking to my health goals. That was the struggle too. But everything changed when I discovered Hungryroot. Honestly, it's been a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungryroot, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of my grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on my taste and health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to my door. It's been a huge time saver and has made healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungryroot as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out. All right, Josh Giddey returns from his injury in this game. He makes an immediate impact. He has 5 rebounds in 5 minutes as he checks in to this game with 7 minutes and 43 seconds left to go in the first quarter. Thought it was interesting he didn't just start this game with the amount of minutes that he ended up playing. Giddey ended up playing 31 minutes on the night, which is where he would normally play if he was a starter. So just doesn't mean anything, but just interesting that he would not be in the starting lineup. My guess is that will change as soon as tomorrow night, or tonight if you're listening to this on audio, or the next morning since it is 11:30 Central Time, that he might just return to the starting lineup in the next game. Kind of like we saw Nikola Vucevic. He came back from his injury, came off the bench, and then returned to the starting lineup in the next one. But Giddey comes back, goes 10 for 15 from the field, 2 for 4 from the three-point line, 7 rebounds. So he got 5 of his 7 rebounds immediately in the game and then didn't really do much there elsewhere the rest of it. 7 assists, 2 steals, a block, only 1 turnover, but with 22 points on the night. So the last couple shows, as we've been talking about, I was like, what are the Bulls? Have the Bulls been missing Josh Giddey? I think the answer has been an easy yes. And obviously the end result tonight doesn't show that he made a winning impact in terms of the fact that they lost this basketball game. But I do feel like validated a little bit in watching him out there with the Bulls. They move faster, they move quicker. At the end of the game, he's attacking the bucket really quickly. In those late game situations, when you're down 6-4, 2 points, whatever it is, and there's less than a minute left on the clock, I feel like that's where Josh Giddey actually is almost at his best when he's attacking the paint, because he just knows that there's a pace that he needs to play at that time, and he often plays at this pace throughout the entire game. But we saw there at the end, as they were trying to come back from this game, that he was the one who was driving down the court. That last bucket he had before the game was over was really nice against Kevin Durant and a couple other Suns that were there in the paint. So we saw the immediate return of Josh Giddey, and I think we'll see him back in the starting lineup, which is good for this team. And I thought Trey Jones is a cool story, hearing the stuff from Casey Johnson about him and Tyus, and how Tyus was excited for Trey Jones to be playing, his little brother to be playing for Billy Donovan with the Chicago Bulls. So that was cool to see that matchup tonight, 2 brothers on the court at the same time. But yeah, I think we see Josh Giddey return to the starting lineup. We did get an update on Lonzo Ball today as well, that he is starting to shoot and use his wrist again. Still feels like he is a ways away from actually returning to the Bulls lineup this season. I'm still, with 13 games left to go. Yeah, 13 games left to go in the season. I'm not totally convinced we see Lonzo Ball again this year, which I think goes back to some of the frustrations that we all had around the trade deadline of extending him versus just trading him when he was healthy and playing well. Like, since then, he's been out basically the entire time, and any of the maybe positive feelings that people in the NBA had around him with his health, this is a wrist injury, not a leg injury, not a knee injury. I wonder what the thought process is of teams that were trying to trade for Lonzo at the deadline. If this post-deadline Lonzo injuries maybe puts them on pause a little bit for them. Now, he will have a cheap contract, so $10 million for a year is not something that you can't move, but just kind of goes back to the deadline of like probably Mr. Mark, AK, in front office to get real value for Lonzo Ball, and we'll see if he plays this year. I don't feel confident that he will play this year. I think it would be more of a surprise just because if you're going to try to move him this offseason, what's the point of putting him out there and him getting hurt again for you this year, unless it's really just a showcase kind of a thing. So we saw his return. Now, Modest Buzelis, 5 points in this game. 1 for 6 from the field, 0 for 3. One of the plays that stood out to me, as the positive is with like the alley-oop, right? He didn't get hurt. But in the alley-oop was just sick from Trey Jones. The negatives from this game is, to me, there's one that really stands out. And I think I've talked about this before on these shows. But Modest has some major work to do with his body. There was a play where he was on the far side of the court near the baseline. And he's trying to cross up Devin Booker and get to the paint. And Booker just puts a body on him. Modest loses the ball and it goes out of bounds. This is where I think the stuff pre-draft about his dribbling, I think that's the stuff that they were talking about. Because there are times when it's been talked about on the broadcast, it's been talked amongst the fans, like, man, this guy can dribble the basketball. It's that moment where I'm like, that leaves some to be desired from Modest Buzelis as you're trying to face up with Devin Booker and get to the paint, specifically because of who it is. It's Devin Booker. He's not good defensively. Like, that shouldn't be someone that Modest Buzelis is struggling. So I think it's the dribbling. I think it's just putting on muscle mass and just weight. I think it's going to help him so much in the offseason. But he continues to kind of, after a good game, his last one, 17 points, and felt like maybe he was going to be back up on the rise this season. We now see him return to just an overall kind of struggle fest against the Phoenix Suns in this one. So the Bulls lose 127-121. They are 29-40 on the season. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow night, late night as well, 9 o'clock start tip time. So we'll be here at around 11:30 for 15 to 20 minutes talking about the Bulls game versus the Sacramento Kings and potentially Zach LaVine as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. My name's Joe George. Peace.